Hello. I want to express the thoughts that I have on the Fantastic Beasts franchise so far. We haven't had all the movies come out yet. So far what we have is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, and just this week we got our trailer for Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. So that's all I have to go off of, and usually I don't like to do these sort of like reviews or critiques partway through a project or a series because you never know how it's going to continue or how it's going to end, but even just this far into the process, I have some pretty strong thoughts that I really want to express. First up, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now, most of my comments on this movie are actually pretty positive. I really liked this first film. And here are some of the main things that I love about it. One of the biggest is that we were following a new group of characters. We had been following along with Harry Potter and his friends and his acquaintances and everyone that he interacts with for several years, and so we got to know them really well. And so I loved being able to be introduced to brand new characters in this wizarding world that we weren't familiar with. We were able to see new lifestyles, new different kinds of careers. And another thing that I really liked is how it took place in America in a completely different setting, and so we were able to see a whole new culture, and it's in a different time period. I loved that we got to see the wizarding world way back in the 20s and how life was back then. And another fun thing is how we got to follow adults. In the Harry Potter series, for the most part, they're teenagers through most of the story, and so we saw it through those eyes. We saw what it's like for underage wizards, how they have to live in the world with those restrictions, and also just them learning the magic and that process. And so I really liked being able to watch adults function in the wizarding world with that advanced level of magical knowledge, so how they went about just doing daily tasks and being able to apparate and just going from one place to another so quickly and effectively and things like that. So those are some of the overall general things that I really loved about the first movie. But really, one of my favorite parts was that main core group of four. I love Newt, I love Tina, I love Queenie, and I love Jacob. The backup characters, the secondary characters are also excellent. I loved the villain, I loved the president, and all of the characters on the side. But those main four I just absolutely adore. Some of the specific characteristics I liked about these characters are I love how Newt was an introvert and kind of awkward around people. You don't see that very often in films. What I loved about Tina is her spunk and charisma and how relatable it is, how she wants to do well in something, but she doesn't super excel at it, but you get to see her grow throughout the movie and see her relationships grow with everyone around her. I love Queenie. Queenie was actually one of my favorite characters. Actually, after the movie, I went and I bought her wand because I loved her so much. I actually went and got her wand, and I'm actually pretty bummed with what they did with her character in the second one. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And then I love Jacob. I love how they made one of the main characters a muggle, or a nomad, as they call them in America. And also, of course, the Fantastic Beasts. It was fun because in the Harry Potter series, we got to see some beasts in the books through Hagrid's class and a few other places, but hardly any of those creatures made it into the movies, and so it was really fun to be able to see those on screen. Another thing I really liked how they introduced was the whole concept of the Obscurus and Obscurial, because it was really fascinating to watch in this movie, but also it let us as fans do a little bit of detective work, because with the information that is given to us, we are able to deduce that that is probably what happened to Dumbledore's sister, Ariana. She probably became an Obscurial, and that's what destroyed her. And I'll actually refer you over to a video over on the SuperCarlinBrothers channel that explains what I'm talking about. They do a whole video on it that they did a long time ago when the movie came out that I'll refer you to. They explain what I'm talking about. So those are some of the reasons that I absolutely loved the first movie. Main one being that we were able to follow new characters and see a new side of the wizarding world. That's what I really loved. So now on to Crimes of Grindelwald. This movie I did not care for as much. And just starting right off the bat, I'm not sure why they kept the title Fantastic Beasts in there. Because the first one, it made sense. That was literally the plot of the movie. They were finding these fantastic beasts. Newt was the main character, and so it made a lot of sense that it was called Fantastic Beasts. and where to find them. But it felt a little bit forced to call the second one Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, because beasts do not play as much of a part. When they do play a big part, it usually is directly tied to Newt, not Grindelwald, and honestly not the overall story. So I kind of felt like them having Fantastic Beasts in the title felt a little bit forced, and so far it feels forced in Secrets of Dumbledore as well. We'll see what part they play in the movie, but yeah, I don't know why they kept that in the title. So walking out of the theater, I had two very distinct thoughts going through my head, and they are both still applicable to this day as far as my opinion about this movie goes. The first thought that I had was that this movie felt like it was written by a book author. Let me expand on that a little bit. This is actually something I could talk about for a very long time, but I'll try to sum up my thoughts. Books and movies are two completely different mediums. A lot of the times people think when they read a really good book, it should just be basically the script for a movie. Because it was so good, it was such high quality, it should just be the template for the movie. No, that is not the case. Books and movies are so different. The pacing is different. The narration is different. The way you absorb the information and experience the world is completely different. This movie, Crimes of Grindelwald, I felt like it was written by a book author because there were so many things in it that were cool, but belonged in a book, not a movie. And here's what I mean by that. In a book, you can do a lot of side stories and have a lot of details that aren't really pertaining to the main plot, and it's fine. Whereas in a movie, it needs to be more focused. You want the heroes to accomplish the objective, and there's a format that you're expecting it to follow. I have an example that I think illustrates this point pretty well, and it's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. In the book, you have a ton of side stories that are just fine to read in a book, but do not have a place in the movie. Like, Spew is one of the big ones, right? A lot of fans have a problem that they left Spew out of the movie, but I would argue that that is just fine. In the book, it's fun to read that sidetrack. It expounds on Hermione's character, but in a movie, it would just slow down the pacing. It would distract you from what was going on. Sorry, people who think it should have been in the movie. I am of the opinion that it should not have been. I'm glad they took it out. And another thing that I'm glad they took out for the movie was the character of Ludo Bagman. If you have never read the books, you don't even know who I'm talking about. Hagrid's backstory, another great example. That's so intriguing to read in the book, to learn more about Hagrid, his background, where he came from. But in the movie, not necessary. Glad they took it out. Rita Skeeter, that whole side story, didn't need to be in the movies, as fun as it is to read about. And all the fun things that are in the maze and the third task. It would have been so much fun to see those things on screen, like the Sphinx and everything else, but it's fine that they took them out. I'm glad that they stayed focused on the story so that it worked in movie form, because it's fine in a book, but not so much for a movie. And that's really how I felt with Crimes of Grindelwald. There were so many things in it that would have been so much fun in a book, but in movie form, I really felt like it slowed down the story and the pacing and just kind of muddled the movie and didn't really belong there. Like the circus. When I saw that in the trailer before the movie came out, I was so excited. I thought the circus sounded super fascinating, but it would have worked in a book. It could have been like a chapter where they go visit this circus and see these things and then move on. But in a movie, it's like it got introduced and then I am expecting that to go somewhere. I'm wanting to see more. So when they just ditched it, I felt kind of incomplete and disappointed. So that was kind of a bummer to me. And that's one place where I really felt it. Another one was that lady that's at the French ministry, I think it is, right? That has like the cats around her. I really was curious about her. Like, I wanted to know more. I felt like there was a backstory there to be told, but it was there and then gone in a flash. Another thing that just felt really out of place was the like Loch Ness Monster thing almost, that's like down in Newt's work area where his assistant is and everything. How he goes and rides it. It really felt like that was supposed to be leading into something or should have played a bigger part later on, but it didn't. One of the biggest ones also was Nicholas Flamel and the Sorcerer's Stone. That straight up just felt like fan service. I did not like how that was introduced, because it really just felt like it was there for the sake of Harry Potter fans being able to be like, ooh, look, I recognize that guy. I know who he is. I'm really hoping he plays a part later on. He probably will, probably in relation with the blood pact that Grindelwald and Dumbledore made, I'm guessing. But in this movie, it just simply felt like fan service, and it felt a little bit cheap. I was disappointed when we saw Nicholas Flamel and the Sorcerer's Stone. Anyway, not everyone probably has a problem with that, but to me that was something that was very apparent, is that this was written by a book author. I felt that, and I didn't like it. I don't think it played into a movie very well. Now, the second thing that I came out of the theater thinking was that this movie, Crimes of Grindelwald, felt like a middle chapter. To be expected, right? This is the second of 5 movies, I think, and so it's to be expected that a lot of the storyline parts were probably going to feel incomplete or feel like they were leading somewhere. But there were things that I was just like, oh goodness, this just feels like the middle of a story. One place that I really felt that was with Newt and Tina's relationship. It felt very forced how they just dragged it out, where it's like, okay, maybe I could believe that there was some misunderstanding, that one of them had become romantically interested in someone else and there was a miscommunication or misunderstanding. Okay, but like the whole movie, they spend quite a bit of screen time together. And you're in the wizarding world, it's not that hard to send a message and communicate with people. Like, for them to go the entire movie under that misunderstanding just felt like, well, okay, well, we can't have them be a couple at the end of this movie because we're in the middle of this series, so we gotta drag it out somehow so they don't become official. It felt forced. I felt that they were dragging out that relationship, and I didn't like that. Another part of the movie that made it feel like a middle chapter was the character of Nagini. There's a lot of questions you could bring up in her character in general, whether she should even be here or not, or what is the deal with her, but I'm not going to dive into that. But I think it's interesting that they set her up, and then she literally didn't do anything for the rest of the movie. She just sat there and followed Credence around. Her character felt very incomplete. I'm expecting her to do more later on down the line, but just in this movie, she felt pretty pointless. So again, they just set something up that didn't pay off, and so it just felt like this was part of a larger story, but in and of itself was not very satisfying. So anyway, those were 2 of the big problems that I had with the movie to begin with, and I still think those things. But now let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about the characters and where they decided to go with them. So the characters that they had already established, right? Let's start with that main 4, right? Newt, Tina, Queenie, and Jacob. I loved them in the first one, and I'm actually pretty disappointed with what they did with most of them. It felt really forced that they followed Newt to Europe, where it's like, Tina, maybe I could believe that, you know, because of her job being an Auror, she was sent across the sea to do some case, even though I would think that they have Aurors over in Europe to handle things, but whatever. I can kind of believe that. But Queenie and Jacob being there felt so forced, and honestly it makes Queenie look really bad, that she enchanted Jacob to be in love with her and to follow her across the world. It makes her look awful. I'm really disappointed with what they did with Queenie's character. Now Jacob, of course, again, is one of the best parts of the movie. I'm so glad that he's in it. But even as I say that, I would have a proposition for what they should have done with these movies, because where I think they're going with this is in each of these 5 movies, Newt is supposed to visit a new part of the world. And so to have this group of characters that is very, you know, specific to New York City in the United States, it feels weird that they're going to be following him around the world. What would have made more sense, unfortunately, is that in each movie, it would have been a lot more fun as if in this new place that Newt visits, he meets new people native to the place that he's going, and they help him with his adventures there, and he gets to explore and meet a whole bunch of different kind of people all around the world. It saddens me to say that because I so love this core group that they established in the first movie, but I am very worried that it's going to feel very unnatural and forced that they follow him around the world. We'll see though. Who knows? But right now, it feels that way, and so I'm worried where that's headed. Now, something that I said that I loved about the first movie is that we got to follow brand new characters. And so in this movie, when they introduced the character of Dumbledore and Grindelwald especially, I was pretty disappointed. In the first movie, when Grindelwald pops up at the end, I was like, okay, that wasn't necessary. It would have been fun if it was just Colin Farrell's character being the bad guy. And it's fine that they name drop Dumbledore a couple of times just to tie it back into the Harry Potter universe. But I liked that it was new characters. So now that the story is starting to focus much more on known characters that we already are familiar with and know pretty well, I'm becoming less and less interested in this franchise. I'm not gonna lie, because I already know these characters. I know their story. And even expounding upon that, I'm not too interested in. I would much rather follow new characters. So I'm kind of disappointed that the second one went in that direction and that we're seeing a lot more of Dumbledore and his story. As amazing as Jude Law is, I love the casting of Jude Law, but I don't like that we're following Dumbledore so much. And his look. Why is everyone dressed in very normal, mugglish looking clothing? I don't know. That's a personal nitpick. I like how when they dress very wizardy, it makes it feel much more fun. But anyway, so along the lines of going with familiar things, I don't like how they go back to Hogwarts. It's familiar. We know this place. I want to see new places. I'm very familiar with Hogwarts. We've spent a lot of time there. I don't really want to go back. And it really does seem like the franchise is going to be following the Dumbledores because of the twist at the end that they had with Credence, where suddenly he's a Dumbledore?
The name I now restore to you. Aurelius. Aurelius Dumbledore.
I would like to think that Grindelwald was just lying, right? Like, oh, you're a Dumbledore. But they set up earlier in the movie that a phoenix would reveal itself to a Dumbledore.
There's a story in my family that a phoenix will come to any Dumbledore in desperate need.
And so that is very intentionally, to me, seeming to be confirmation to the audience that when we see a phoenix, it is in correlation with a Dumbledore. And so when it appears to Credence, it seems very official that he is a Dumbledore, which doesn't make sense because we are very familiar with the Dumbledore family tree. We know quite a bit about them from the Harry Potter franchise. And so where is Credence supposed to fit into all of this? I just don't understand. I'm expecting them to expound upon this in future movies, but I don't like how they seem to be changing what has already been established in this world. And speaking of changing things that have already been established in this world, what's up with McGonagall? How come she's a teacher there when she's not even supposed to be born at this point? And it can't be like one of her descent or ancestors. It's not like her mom or aunt or anyone, because we know her family, we know her backstory as well. We know that they weren't at Hogwarts, and so it's got to be Minerva, which doesn't make sense. It felt like fan service again. It just felt like they were just trying to throw something in there for us old-timies, and it felt forced and I didn't like it. Last thing I'll kind of touch on, but I don't really want to talk about because it just is annoying to me, and I'm not gonna lie, I still don't really fully understand it, is the whole thing with Leta Lestrange. Literally this whole movie was about Credence and like his identity, who he is, where he came from, and we were kind of figuring that out. But then twist at the end, it's actually not what we thought. It kind of made this whole movie feel like a waste of time. Where I was like, everything I just learned, everything I just experienced meant nothing. It was meant to be this really interesting twist that he actually died and drowned as a baby. But it just made it feel so empty. I was like, why did I even watch this movie? If it turns out all this stuff that was just built up didn't even matter. It's not even real. I was very disappointed by that twist. And so I'm not going to talk much more about it because I really don't want to. But I was disappointed by that twist. I'll leave it there. Now moving on to the third installment, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Now, like I said, all we have for this movie is a title, and we just got a trailer, the first trailer. First look at it. I've watched it a couple of times, and here are my thoughts so far. Just going off the title, I am very disappointed that it makes it very apparent and clear that this movie, and I'm guessing quite a bit of the rest of the franchise, is going to be about the Dumbledore family and the Dumbledore story. Newt will obviously still play a part. He's going to play a big part in these movies, but I after the first Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find the movie, I was hoping this was going to be much more centralized on Newt and his adventures as a magizoologist. So just even having the movie called Secrets of Dumbledore ties it far too much into the Harry Potter franchise, which I personally don't like. The trailer made it obvious we are going to be spending quite a bit of time at Hogwarts. I've already expressed my thoughts on that. I don't really like that. But it opens up a possibility. At this time at Hogwarts, unless they're messing with the timeline like they did with McGonagall, unless they're messing up canon that's already established, at Hogwarts at this time, there should be Tom Riddle and Rubeus Hagrid. So there's a real possibility, if we're spending a ton of time at Hogwarts, that we are going to see small little Voldemort and Hagrid. Or Hagrid. And considering that Hagrid is super into animals, and so is Newt, I really think there's a possibility we're going to see something there. That could be really cool if done right. It could tie it in a very special way, but it could also feel like fan service if done wrong. So we'll see how they handle that, if they handle that. I'm really nervous for how that might turn out, but that's a possibility for something that might be coming down the line. Okay, so let's move on to characters and what we know so far. We didn't see Tina in the trailer, I don't think, so I have no idea what to think about her. Queenie we didn't see either. I just realized I didn't talk about Queenie and how that ended in the last movie. I'm very nervous to see what they do with Queenie, because it kind of makes sense at the end how she went with Grindelwald, because her motivations are there, right? She wants to marry a muggle and that's illegal or looked down upon or whatever. But what does not make sense is she is a mind reader, right? Which I really like that aspect of her character, and it could be very, very interesting. But having her go with the villain just doesn't make sense, because if she can actually read his thoughts, that means that what he's doing is justifiable or right? Unless he's like crazy good deceptive in his thoughts constantly and is fooling her somehow, it means that he's sincere, which I don't like. Why would they do that? Where is that going? I did not like that in that standalone movie. We'll see how it plays out, but I didn't like that at all. So we'll see what they do with Queenie and with her character. I liked seeing Jacob because I love Jacob, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm so sure I'm the minority here, but I was really disappointed when they gave him a wand. Because as fun as it is to think about him being able to do magic, I liked it when he was a muggle. It felt so fun because it was someone for us to relate to, and it really grounded the group, and it broke away from the Harry Potter universe where everyone was witches and wizards, you know, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. But I really liked how Jacob was part of the main group and he was a no-match. He was a muggle. I loved that. And so giving him this magical element, or there's even the possibility that he does have magical blood and maybe he is a wizard or has some magical capabilities. Like I said, I'm so sure I'm a minority, but I don't like that concept so far. I really liked it when he was a no-match. We'll see where they go with Credence's character. I loved Credence's character in the first movie. Thought it was super fascinating. I loved the Obscurial angle. I didn't super love him in the second one. This third one looks like he is very involved and he's very active. I didn't see Nagini, so we'll see what happens there unless I missed her. But it looks like he has some confrontations with Albus. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with Credence's character, actually. We'll see what happens there. I don't really want to talk about Grindelwald because of the whole Johnny Depp thing. I'm really not going to dive into that can of worms. What I will say is I like Johnny Depp as an actor. I really thought he was a good cast, but I'm actually not sure he played the part well, because what it seems Grindelwald's actual real talent is his charisma and his public speaking, because at that big rally at the end of the last movie, that seems to be where his power lies, is being able to turn people's heads and be able to gain followers through his speaking. And I'm not quite sure Johnny Depp quite delivered on that. So we'll see how this new guy does, and we'll see how that plays out. I wasn't super hot on the idea of the whole blood pact thing in the last movie. We'll see how that plays out. Wasn't big on the whole Phoenix thing. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see. Alright, so to kind of just start wrapping this video up, as I said at the beginning, I don't really like talking about large projects like this halfway through because who knows where it's going. So many of these things that I have brought up or complained about might become irrelevant or obsolete. They might resolve themselves, who knows. But I just have these very strong thoughts for the series as it is right now, and so I wanted to talk about those. If you actually made it all the way through this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I don't know if you agree or disagree with what I've said. Let me know down in the comments. I'm curious to see what other people think of the franchise so far. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye. Hi.
I just come and give you one nice hug.
Oh, you want to come give me a hug?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
I want to give you also a kiss.
You want to give me a kiss too?
Yeah.
You're so sweet. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Thanks. You're so sweet. Thanks for visiting me.
You're welcome. I did go back upstairs and wash.
Okay, bye.